Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Something to Wrestle with Bruce Prichard. Bruce, what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm Bruce Prichard.
Oh, what is this?
No, hey, I'm Conrad Thompson, and I don't know. Hey, I'm Bruce Prichard.
Well, we're excited you're here, and happy Monday. It's we're getting used to our new drop here after all those years dropping on Fridays. We hope you're going to have a great Monday, and hope you'll be sure to tune in to Monday Night Raw tonight. But first, we're going to start our day off talking about, well, a topic I've had on my list for a long time, a real guilty pleasure of mine as a young wrestling fan. My goodness, I love me some Nasty Boys.
You dressed as Nasty Boys for Halloween.
I did, yeah.
That picture needs to go up on this so that everyone can see. Conrad is a little nasty boy. What were you, 8?
You know, that's a good question. I was probably 9, I would guess. Okay. 8, 9, 10, somewhere in there. But my best friend growing up,
nasty.
Yes, he had blonde hair, and
he was a boy,
and I had black hair, and so we were the Nasty Boys. We trick or treated as 8 or 9 year olds as the Nasty Boys. It was pretty awesome. And man, whenever I think of the Nasty Boys, I certainly think about my childhood fandom. And boy, I'm going to take a stab at this. Brian Knobbs, real name Brian Yan Drizovitz. Is that right?
Okay.
Born May 5th, 1964. And how about Jerome Saganowicz?
No.
Saganowicz.
Saganowicz.
All right. Gesundheit. He's born July 5th, 1964. Man, I'm sure I'm glad they decided to be Brian Knobbs and Jerry Sags. That's a little easier for me.
Well, I would imagine that the Sags came from shortening Saganowicz throughout his childhood. I'm sure that he was just Sag for many years before coming into the wrestling ranks.
Meanwhile, I don't know how. I mean, I've seen a lot of different photos of Brian Knobbs, and I've yet to figure out why they call him Knobbs. They grew up in Allentown, Pennsylvania. They get their start by training with Vern Gagne and Brad Ringens, and it feels like, boy, look at that early photo of a young Nasty Boy duo here. I mean, is it just me, or did half of wrestling at one point go through Vern's camp and Brad Ringens? I mean, you think about the glory days of the 1980s in professional wrestling, that golden era, man, it just feels like one big star after another came through that camp.
Well, there weren't a whole lot of camps to go through, and Vern had an established camp in Minnesota with a proven track record. So quite a few top stars had gone through the Vern Gagne camp. It was also notable that if you weren't up to snuff, you didn't continue in the camp for very long. So the Vern camp was a good one, and it was one that people knew about because it wasn't like you could go to your yellow pages. You didn't have Google machines back in those days, folks. The Google machine is a new thing. All right. So for old timers like me, we didn't have no Google machine. Just go look shit up. You had a phone book and you had word of mouth. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the Vern Gagne School of Wrestling was not in the yellow pages in any phone book. So it's probably word of mouth, and you probably had to know someone and get someone to even talk to Vern to get Vern to consider letting you come in to try out.
Well, I'll tell you, the Nasty Boys were pushed in the late 80s, the dying days of the AWA. Man, I love these old photos. If you're not already, check us out on YouTube at somethingtowrestle.com, because some of these photos I'd never seen before. But another tag team that we're all familiar with, the Midnight Rockers, they were in the AWA as well. That's a very young Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty.
That's not Shawn Michaels, Marty Jannetty.
No, that's still the Nasty Boys. When do you first remember hearing about the Nasty Boys?
Man, I couldn't tell you. I really don't know. It probably was the AWA, but I don't think that they made any kind of a splash that had people going, "Oh my God, the Nasty Boys." So might have seen them during that time, but I don't remember them ever making this big, huge splash that it was like, "Oh my God, the Nasty Boys, gotta have them."
Now, normally when we hear about guys who went through, Vern's camp, they become, well, not all the time, but we've heard of guys like Ricky Steamboat and Ric Flair going through. Those are technical wrestlers. That's not really going to be the lane for the Nasty Boys. They're going to be brawlers. And I've even seen people comment in social media and make some comments on shoot interviews and certainly newsletters that they might have even been a little too wild at times and bordering recklessness. Was that ever your impression? I mean, what was your first impression of seeing their work? These big, nasty brawlers, the Nasty Boys.
Yeah, I thought they were sloppy. Yeah, I just thought that they were, two big guys that got into the business, and they were sloppy. They were sloppy. They were sloppy in their appearance. They were sloppy in their work, and that, to me, is also what made them different. They weren't smooth. They weren't these guys that went out there and grabbed a hold and did things. They were, as their name implied, they were nasty. So when I say sloppy, I'm not saying it in a bad way. It's just, it was an appearance, and it was a way that they approached their work, that they weren't like everybody else. They didn't have the same uh crisp, smooth collar and elbow, where there's a million Ricky Steamboats that come up and have that smooth, I want to be smooth like that. And I think it's a little more difficult, especially during period of times in the business where it was risky to be sloppy like that and risky to be different. And I'm going to start saying different rather than sloppy, because they were just unorthodox in the way that they approached what they did in the ring.
I think that's what I like best about them, Bruce.
That's what everybody liked best about them, but it was hard to put your finger on.
Yes. They just looked, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but it felt like they had credibility. Like they had that believability. Like these were just guys you would see in a bar and think, okay, they're loud, they're obnoxious, but don't mess with them.
Don't fuck with them. Yeah.
Yeah. I like
to back it up.
Do you think that, we've certainly seen guys who would go to great lengths to have that sort of credibility or fear. I mean, if you turn the volume on that up all the way, maybe you get like a Sheik or an Abdullah or a Bruiser Brody, but this sort of brawling style, but not necessarily the bloodlust, like some of those names. Was that sort of a happy medium? Do you think, if you were going to tone down the violence of an Abdullah or a Sheik or a Bruiser Brody or a big attraction like that, would that be the tag team version of the Nasties? Just a little more PG version of that?
A little bit, but I don't know that the market was ready for something like that in a tag team. They had the Road Warriors, and the Road Warriors were probably your upper echelon of guys that looked dangerous and looked like they would hurt you in the ring and things like that. And then there were the Nasty Boys, same thing, but a different approach, because they didn't have the muscles. They weren't doing all the same things. So it was, a little different, more dangerous approach to them, where they were very unpredictable in what they did in the ring, and their promos, same thing. So it was a different package.
The Nasty Boys are going to try their trade all over the world. Really. They're going to hit Memphis, just like everybody did in that era. They're going to stop in Florida, of course. Maybe they had a hookup with Dusty, and they even get a little tour of Japan. But what jumped off the page for me in my research is Brian Knobbs actually got a one-off shot at a house show in Daytona Beach in early June of 1990. He'd be doing the honors for Tugboat there, but not as a tag team, as a singles guy. Later that same summer, they debut with WCW. Do you remember this? I mean, is there any chance you remember meeting Brian or hearing about this at all?
No, certainly don't. That was a shocker to me as well, but obviously I'm sure it happened, but I don't remember it at all.
Well, they're certainly chasing their television dreams. They want to be television wrestlers. They want to do this at a high level. They get a look, or at least Brian does, with the WWF. It doesn't go anywhere. So they sign with WCW, debut in August of 90. And that's, Yeah, so I would have been 9. I guess I was 9 or 10. Because man, I was all in. I mean, these guys were almost immediately programmed with the Steiners. Their tag team match at Halloween Havoc 90 is just unbelievable for me. When you first saw them through a WCW lens and not an AWA lens, what did you think of the presentation on the WCW side of things? Is this when they would have been more on your radar or maybe Vince's radar by showing up in WCW?
Yeah, I don't know. They were ever on Vince's radar. That was the first time that I really remember seeing them on a big stage. So this was really their coming out party where people got to see them and actually got to see them work a little bit and do some things. But it was, look, man, it was a new team. It was a different team, and that was, for me, that was the key. They were different. They didn't look like everybody else. They didn't work like everybody else. They didn't act like everybody else. So that is the beauty of the Nasty Boys, is they came in a time where you had a couple of different ways to go. You could be the smooth workers, and you can go be Tully and Arn and watch paint dry, or you can go and you can be the Road Warriors and get jacked up and be huge and just do big power moves. They weren't that. You could be the rock and roll and have the long hair and the bodies and high flying things, but to me, I think that they came in at a perfect time with the perfect gimmick that made them stand out and made people go, "Oh, hey, shit, here's something new to watch." Because I can't remember a team like that until the Nasty Boys. So they blew up the mold, they blew up the model, and they say, "Hey, look at us. We'll give you something different."
Well, I know you don't want to, but I got to circle back to that whole Arn and Tully. You could just go watch paint dry comment. Like, what was it about Dory Funk that brought the razzle dazzle for you that Arn and
He drew
Tully did
money.
not?
He drew money. He drew a lot of money, and he was a solid, steady, fundamentally sound champion.
He drew money or the belt drew money?
He drew money.
Okay.
He drew money. He was very innovative in his finishes, and all of his matches were very different. He would work around his opponent and do their matches and make them look good. Um, Tremendous.
You don't think Arn and Tully did that?
I think that Tully was an excellent wrestler. I think that Arn was an excellent wrestler. I think that when they got together as a tag team, that they became very bland. They were part of the Horsemen, and when the Horsemen had all the individual titles, I thought that was cool because you had guys that had individual programs. Arn could stand on his own. Tully could stand on his own. I think that when Tully and Arn were together as a tag team, that they were out there to get beat. And I just was never big fan of them working wise in the ring individually. And I think that they were a great tag team. I thought they were boring at times.
Is that just because they didn't have an over the top gimmick like a demolition or something like that? And that was sort of what was called for in the
I
WWF at the
think
time?
I think I didn't forget about WWF at the time. It was also even before that. I think that when they got into the tag team mold, and that we're the tag team that's going to get beat because they want somebody else to have the TV title, and they want somebody else to have the US title. They'll give us the tag team titles, and we'll go around and get beat up everywhere. I just thought that. I was just watching something the other day with both of them individually. Tully as the United States champion. I was like, God, Tully could go. Arn could go. And I just liked that. I liked them singularly. I didn't like them collectively. I didn't think that they were. I think individually, either one of them could have headlined as a tag team. They could.
Believe it or not, even though the Nasty Boys are now in WCW and they're working with one of their top tag teams in the Steiner brothers, they weren't technically under contract. They're just working a per night deal, but they were reportedly offered $156,000 each, of course. And instead they finish up in about 3 months. And the rumor and innuendo is that they're headed to the WWF to take a deal to come in and work with the LOD. I mean, What a brilliant decision that those guys made. If they tried to give a look to the WWF in June of 90, it doesn't work out. They somehow get on WCW programming later that summer. Don't sign a long-term contract, get featured on TV, get a high profile pay-per-view match. Thank you very much. I want to see what I can do somewhere else. That would be tough to pull off in most eras, but I guess they did it here, huh?
Well, it's not tough to pull off. When you look, man, when you talk about uh Knobs having a look, Knobs didn't have a look. Knobs was in as an extra. He was there to get beat by Tugboat. So that's not something where it's like, oh, hey, come on in and we're going to see what you can do and put you in the ring with an extra. Knobs is there as an extra. So I think that's blowing it up to, oh, he came in to have a look. That he wasn't coming in to have a look. He was a guy that was on the card to enhance Tugboat. Um, but what they did in WCW, making a big splash there and going in and showing their wares, it was more of a, now it's like, okay, who are these guys? And the team was exciting. Team was different. So them, that's WCW's fumble.
Yeah.
If they put guys, on a major pay-per-view event and not have them under contract and they're out shopping around, it's like, okay, now we've seen what you can do. We see the team, we see what this looks like. And come on in and let's do something with you.
Well, they were
I
doing
guarantee it was
something.
not a for a guarantee.
Oh yeah. I mean, those guarantees were a lot different back then,
Yeah.
but so was the tag team division. Let's just take a look at this 1990 tag team division they're coming to. The Legion of Doom, Hawk and Animal, Demolition, their old pals, the Rockers, the Hart Foundation, the Bushwhackers, the Orient Express. This is a loaded tag team division, but there's not really a team quite like the Nasty Boys in there. I see why you would think, hey man, they'd be perfect opponents for Demolition or the Legion of Doom or
Every one of them.
every one of them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. They were different enough in that you didn't have, oh, well, man, they're too much like the Orient Express, or they're too much like the Bushwhackers, or too much like them. They were different than every one of them. And I think that they paired up excellently with every single tag team on the roster.
No argument there. They're almost immediately put with Jimmy Hart, and they're going to debut at a Superstars taping on December 11th, 1990. Talk about timing. Timing's everything here. Let's remind everybody the pay-per-view we just plugged for WCW was Halloween Havoc. That was in October. So here we are 5 or 6 weeks later. They're debuting on Superstars. This was the A show for the company back then. And with a top manager, Jimmy Hart. What was your first impression meeting these guys once they were the Nasty Boys here?
Great guys, just fun-loving party guys that came in and were determined. The thing about them is they wanted it. They came in and it wasn't just like, okay, hey, here we are. All right, now it's just what they wanted to be the top guys. They wanted to make noise. They wanted to be different and stand out in a crowded division. So the desire from them, the fact that I don't know that I've ever seen Brian Knobs and or Jerry without a smile on their face and just up. They brought an energy into a room no matter where you were, what you were doing. So behind the scenes, in the back, they were the Nasty Boys. They were fun. They were upbeat. They were always cracking jokes. They got along with everybody. I don't know if everybody got along with them, but they did their best to get along with everybody and tried to make the surrounding area in which they occupied at that time to be the place to be and to be fun.
They're going to do one of those early little picture in picture style promos and announce their intention to nasty size any team that crossed their path. Bruce, if you had to define the word nasty size, how would you do so?
I think it was ahead of its time, and I think what they were thinking of, if Vader were to touch you, what you
Oh
would call.
god damn.
And I'm pretty sure that that's that sums it all up as best you can, because if you're in the ring with the Nasty Boys and they would give you the pit stop, which they would raise their arm above their head after they had been in a ring sweating for a little while, a little steamy, stinky, frothy, and then stick your face in there. But I think Nasty Size, someone is just that's just ahead of getting Vader.
Their theme music when they first come out is them singing a song. That song is quickly replaced. There's been a lot of discussion about theme music in wrestling. What did you think of when you guys would try a song for somebody? Like it takes a while before sometimes you settle and you're like, oh yeah, whenever I hear that, I think of these guys. What did you think of the changes here for the Nasty Boys?
Don't really even remember. I know. I
We're the
believe that we settled.
boys, the
Yeah,
Nasty Boys. It's so silly.
yeah. See, there you go. I don't remember it.
Yeah.
I think we settled on a Jimmy Hart tune.
Oh yeah, Jimmy Hart. I mean, he's their manager, so you know he's going to be all over that.
So it was just something a little different. Jimmy always had a way of. Why Jimmy isn't writing jingles even to this day, I will never understand, because he had a brilliance about him that could take anything and make music out of it. Just go, hey, what if this? Hey, how about, does this sound right? Does this set the mood, baby? And Jimmy was good at that. Jimmy was great at that.
Yeah,
Jimmy was
the
just a hell of a musician, but not all musicians can write. And Jimmy could write. Jimmy could write lyrics. Jimmy could write music and pull it all together. And Jimmy could write a vibe, which is important.
I think he wrote like 3 different songs for the Nasty Boys. I think the one I was just freestyling there was more of the WCW version. We can't play it on YouTube here, but they all are on YouTube. So check us out on social. We'll have some links over there at Prichard Show, so you can take a look at those different theme songs. We hear Roddy Piper on commentary in the match refer to Sags as Skags. You think Roddy's doing just Roddy heel shit, or was he learning like everybody else? And we did have a big country singer with Skags, right?
Oh, Ricky Skaggs, yeah, but I think that's just Roddy being Roddy. Hello there, son. Nice to meet you. So what's your name? Oh, my name's Jerry Sachs. Or good. That's good to see you, Skaggs.
Yeah.
Okay, get away from drop something.
Just a month after the debut, we see Brian Knobbs be the third man, down to the final 3 of the 1991 Royal Rumble. The other 2 are Hulk Hogan and Earthquake, who've been in this incredible feud all summer long. But the rumor and innuendo is that Knobbs was inserted into the finish because originally it was supposed to be the Honky Tonk Man in there in that spot, but Honky had left the company. That makes more sense than Nasty Boy Knobbs being one of the last 3, like, 6 weeks after he comes in. Do you think that makes sense that perhaps that was Honky's spot?
No, but I'm sure that probably someone else who wasn't there probably did. You know, especially back then, the Rumble was something that was done like a day or two beforehand. And hey, this would make a great match. What if we did this? What if we did that? It just came down to being something different and something that you can't call. What if? Oh my God, Hulk Hogan and Earthquake. That's the issue. That's the big angle. What if somehow this Nasty Boy won? And at the time, it wasn't like the winner went to WrestleMania. There were no stakes on it, and we had already had by that time Big John Studd win. So it just was a different era. Man. No, that's folklore. Somebody going, oh, I heard this. There's no truth to that. It's done a day or two beforehand, sitting there going, okay, what works? You're working with what you have, which not what you don't have.
Well, the Earthquake and Knobs, I guess, kind of makes sense. They're both Jimmy Hart's men. And I guess so was Honky Tonk Man. But I'm wondering, we've all heard and learned in years since that Brian Knobs and Hulk Hogan are real life pals. Do you think they hit it off immediately in the WWF, or did that come in time, or how did they come to be so close as best as you can recall?
I think they're both Tampa boys and knew each other. So, they became friends because locally, who you going to hang out with? You're going to hang out with people when you're off that you know. And during this period, there wasn't an awful lot of off time. But there were the crew that lived in Tampa, they all hung out together. They all knew each other and were friendly. So Knobs lived in Tampa, Hulk lived in Tampa. They were friends.
Well, the Nasties have always been known for their ribs. Eddie Guerrero has actually discussed how he fell asleep while he was on tour with them over in New Japan, and they shaved his eyebrows. How quickly do you guys learn that, oh, these guys are pranksters? Is that something that, we're learning the hard way? Does the office have to get involved? What do you remember about some of these crazy pranks that you started to hear the Nasty Boys were doing?
Much like the Rockers, the Nasty Boys had a reputation coming in. So, you knew guys that liked to rib. Kurt Hennig liked to rib, man. And so there was, you just kind of knew it. And certain guys like to rib and certain guys didn't like to rib. Me, I don't rib. I don't want to be ribbed. And yeah, Nasty Boys like to rib. Part of their gimmick.
The first run for the house shows here, they're going to be working with the Bushwhackers, and they even get a victory over the Bushwhackers at MSG. If you're watching along with us, that was actually shown on the MSG network back in the day. You can see a clip there at somethingtowrestle.com. It's pretty cool to see a new heel team come in and start picking up wins. And I guess if you're trying to establish them firmly as bad guys, you put them against a fan favorite like the Bushwhackers.
Beloved fan favorites.
Yes.
In the Bushwhackers. How could you not love those guys? Look at those faces.
Right.
Those are faces to love. Those are faces to bring home to mom.
Just 6 weeks into their WWF debut, they're going to get a win in a tag team battle royal that had all the other stars like Demolition and the Legion of Doom and the Rockers and even Power and Glory, the Bushwhackers and the Orient Express. And the winners get a tag team title match at WrestleMania. Now remember, guys, they just started. They debuted at a television taping December 11th. Brian Knobs was down to the last 3 in the Royal Rumble. And now they've just won a tag team battle royal to earn a title shot at WrestleMania. This is coming together fairly quickly for them. It's clear that somebody in the office had a lot of confidence in them. Would that have to be Vince, or where was Pat, or what did you think of their presentation?
I think everybody had, a good feeling with them coming in because they didn't rest on their laurels. They didn't come in and go, okay, I'm here. Now, what are you going to do with me? They came in and they asked questions. They came in and they continually were doing things to get better and get noticed. So instead of just, okay, I'm going to do the status quo, I'm just going to get by. They came in and they did extra. They fought to get noticed. And they did things that were different than what everybody else was doing, man. Look, that's the key. Here's advice to all you young folks out there, man. If you're going to go out and you're going to emulate whoever it is and see it in the business, all the guys that during the 80s that wanted to be Ric Flair, so they would put their little initials on their trunks and they would put their initials on their boots and they would try and do Ric Flair bumps and try to wear the robes. Only difference was Ric Flair was wearing $10,000 robes. Their robes were probably about 600. Ric Flair was spending $1,200 for a pair of wrestling boots that looked like they were worth a lot more, and they were spending $300 for their K&H starter gear. It's just, don't be Ric Flair. Be something different. Hulk Hogan. When Hulk Hogan, everybody wanted to be the jacked up Hulk Hogan and do all the things and drop the leg and shake and pose and do all of that. Hulk Hogan was Hulk Hogan. Same thing with Warrior. It goes on down the line. Every generation has them. You got your guys who want to be Stone Cold. You got your guys who want to be The Rock. Now we got the guys who want to be Cena. Be something different. Different is what stands out. Different is what will take you to the next level. Because if people are always comparing you to something else, then that's your gimmick right there. Oh, well, yeah, he's a drugstore version of whoever, insert name here. And the Nasty Boys, when they got into the ring and they did what they did, there was nothing to compare them to. Oh, yeah, there's just a drugstore version of somebody else. No, they were the Nasty Boys. And they fought hard and they worked hard. So to me, that's what got them noticed. And that's what made them special.
They were indeed special. And it's easy to see how they were so successful when you hear comments from people behind the scenes who were saying these guys were hard workers and trying to get the gimmick over, and they were actively trying to get better. You know, if the effort's there and you're reliable, that's something that the quote unquote office can work with more often than not, right?
Yeah, I'm going to work with people, show up to work on time and bust their ass when the bell rings and when it's time to go. That's more than half the battle. Come to work, be to work on time, be ready to go when it's time to go. Don't have people looking for you. Where are they? Well, they're not here yet. Or, well, they're in a bad mood and they don't want to do this, they don't want to do that. No, the Nasty Boys showed up to work and they took whatever you gave them and tried to make it better. And that's the case in life in general. Don't be the status quo. If an opportunity is presented to you, man, grab it. Take it. Maybe it's scary. Maybe it's gosh, I don't know if I really want to do that. I might get heat. No, then stay where you are. But the only way to advance is to take chances. They
Well,
took chances.
you guys took some chances with them too. When you had your New York toy convention where you're going to be showing off to the rest of the country what your new toy line is going to be and trying to drum up some more business on the merchandise side of the industry. You bring a ring and you set up an exhibition match to impress all these vendors and all the people you're trying to put on a show for there at the toy convention. And of all the matches you could choose, you chose the Nasty Boys and the Bushwhackers. What's the thinking there? I mean, I love that. I think it's cool. I could get behind it, but we're not going with necessarily a Hulk Hogan. We're going with the Nasty Boys and the Bushwhackers. I'm sure the visual and the interaction with the crowd had to be something else at a toy convention like that.
So what are you going to remember? You're an executive, you're a toy executive, and you don't get out of the office but once or twice a year. And you could get to go to a convention in whatever town, USA. Are you going to remember these guys that are loud and wild and dress crazy and went out and beat the crap out of each other along with a team from New Zealand who's, whoa, yeah, that is over the top? Or are you just going to put a wrestling?
Yeah, let's go with the crazy experience for sure.
Let's go with the experience that people are going to be talking. They look like, honest to God, live action figures. They're life-size live action figures coming to life right there at the toy fair versus four guys in trunks and boots just having a wrestling match. That's what they expect. Oh God, wrestling. No, man, this was different. These guys are stars. These guys are larger than life. These guys are fucking toys that, we can put in a package. That's what people talk about. You want people leaving there talking about what they saw.
Well, they saw it and it worked and it made an impression on the boys as well. Bret Hart actually wrote about the Nasty Boys in his book. Here's what Bret had to say. Brian Knobs was a loud, lovable 300-pound kid with a blonde mohawk. Jerry Saggs was also a slab of a man with a black mohawk and one tooth missing up front. They took the numerous complaints from the boys about their stiff, sloppy work good naturedly as a bit of harmless teasing. The truth was, they were as wild as two Brahma bulls in a china shop, and most of the boys loved them because they were true to the spirit of wrestling's notorious wild men of the past. They reminded me a lot of Adrian Adonis. And I got to tell you, before I reread that comment from Brett, I never really made that association, but Adrian's New York badass, man, that would have been a badass like 6-man tag if that ever could have came together. I see the comparison there. What do you make of Brett's comparison to Adrian Adonis?
On the nose.
Yeah.
I think his whole comparison of the Nasty Boys in general is on the nose. That's exactly who they were and how everyone kind of viewed them. They were unique. They stood out, and it was like a breath of fresh air in many ways. Even though it was a little smelly sometimes. But Adrian was a different cat too. Adrian was so far ahead of his time, and Adrian would have fit these guys to a T. Definitely.
We saw quite a moment for them at WrestleMania. They are going to be facing the Hart Foundation. So there you see it. It looks like the Hart Foundation is going to pick up the win because they hit their finish. But damn it, wouldn't you know it? A little bit of cheating. Here comes the megaphone from Jimmy Hart. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. I can't believe this is real. The Nasty Boys are the tag team champions. They just debuted in December. And now here at WrestleMania, they're winning the tag title, something the Rockers never did, mind you. They beat the Hart Foundation at WrestleMania. This was a cool WrestleMania moment for these guys. And Meltzer even liked the match, believe it or not. He called it the second best match of the night. He goes 12 minutes and 8 seconds. Man, what a vote of confidence. We've heard this term before, but this is that rocket ship treatment that people talk about sometimes for the Nasty Boys, is it not?
Look, they were new and they were exciting and they fit the bill. So, yeah, it was good.
I wanted to ask you about something that was written here. Bobby Heenan made a knock during the match at the guys who hurt their hip and quit. That was a reference to Bo Jackson. The real story here is the WWF tried to get Bo Jackson for WrestleMania and it was turned down. And I guess there were bad feelings over it. That's speculation in the Observer. Bo Jackson was a monster sports star. A lot of our listeners about my age probably had a poster of Bo Jackson wearing those shoulder pads with the bat over his shoulders. And I mean, he was a big time athlete and star and public figure, but I've never heard that there was even interest or discussion about him at WrestleMania. Do you remember that being true? Bo Jackson at WrestleMania?
Oh, sure. Yeah. We were talking about Bo being a 3-athlete star and if he wanted to come in, but Bo was concerned as far as, how that would jeopardize his football and baseball career. And any little thing, he just wasn't interested. He was interested, but he thought, wrestling's fake. Yeah, I can do that. Then when he found out, no, man, it's you got to be a hybrid athlete to do it. And Bo was a great athlete. I just don't think Bo had any desire to learn how to take a bump or or do any of the things required to get into the ring. It's a different look, man. It's a different world than getting hit with pads or trying to hit a baseball. It's a
That would have been
different
crazy.
world. I'm not, I played football, and it's the old thing of when that first day of pads hurts like hell. But by the third or fourth day that you're back in pads and you're hitting, and it's like you're begging somebody to hit you. You're hitting them all out, and you're calloused up. You're numb to it by that point. So it's just they're different. You can't knock them out. I'm not going to go out and play football. I'm not going to play baseball. Can't hit a ball. Plus, I'd fall asleep. But
Are you going to fall asleep from the Arn and Tully matches or just bottom of the seventh inning stretch or what?
I couldn't. I wouldn't make it to the seventh inning in baseball. I'm not a baseball guy, man. Don't get it. I like to go to a baseball. I like to go to a baseball stadium and sit back and have a few beers and eat some hot dogs. But after that, just takes too long.
Man,
Takes too long. Not enough happening.
it's so wild to me to think about the crossover opportunities that you guys had and tried to get. Of course, in 1990, thought you had Mike Tyson, didn't work out. You got Buster Douglas instead. In 91, you tried to get Bo Jackson. In 94, or I guess 95, you get Lawrence Taylor. In 96, you tried for OJ. And then in 98, you actually get Mike Tyson. But man, what if along the way, Bo Jackson, my goodness, that would have been wild.
Yeah, but again, look at it from Bo Jackson's side. What's he got to lose?
Right.
He, in his eyes, man, he had everything to lose. There was no upside for him. So it just was one of those things. Everybody got it, but at the same time, he was all in for a minute until he realized, oh, this requires work. And that's with a lot of outside talent that think that oh, this is going to be easy. But that's why I have so much respect for a guy like Tyson, a guy like Floyd Mayweather, Lawrence Taylor, who put the work in. That came in knowing that, oh man, I gotta put the work in because I don't want to embarrass myself, and realize the athletic needs to go out and perform at this level. So, and even today, the Bad Bunnies of the world, Logan Pauls of the world, and those guys, they live it. And that's the difference. It's not just a guy coming in um, and showing up for a match and do a couple of moves. That won't work, especially with today's audience. But even then, they saw through it. So the guys have got to be willing to put the work in.
I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Brian Bosworth, because whenever I think about Bo Jackson, I inevitably think about
Great
Bosworth.
guy.
And man, it felt like he was a prime candidate to be a part of the WWE programming as well. I mean, he was even in the movie called Stone Cold, unrelated, but just had a cool look, a crazy haircut, had a reputation, clearly a marketer. I mean, he would sell the I Hate Bosworth t-shirts outside of the stadium. That was actually him making money on those t-shirts.
Absolutely.
So it just feels like, man, he would have been a home run fit for you guys. I think his football career ended after just a couple seasons. So call it 1990. He would have been available. Was there ever significant discussion with Bosworth about doing something in wrestling?
The conversations with Bosworth over the years have always been around, come into this business. This business is made for you.
Yes.
Oh. And Brian was a football player. Brian loved football. That's what he wanted to do. So Brian being able to coach, Brian being able to do broadcasting, Brian doing anything else with football, that was his passion. That was his love. But from Bill Watts to Vince, I'm sure JR at WCW probably tried. Man, there was uh, always room for Bosworth, because I mean to me he was more made for our business ever than he was for football.
No
He was
doubt.
great. Look, he was a great ball player too, but he had a look, he had an intensity, and he loved it. He loved getting out there. He loved being hated. So I thought Boz was another one that was tailor made for our business.
The Nasty Boys loved being hated too. And boy, were we young fans hating them at home. It's one thing to go out and beat the Hart Foundation, some of our favorites, for the tag belts, but then we have to sit through a pretty memorable post-match celebration with the rest of Jimmy Hart's stable and even Marla Maples all in the back with champagne. Um, Marla Maples and the Nasty Boys. This just kind of writes itself, does it not?
Yeah, great. Thought that, if you were going to take two worlds that were about as opposite as you could get and merge
Yes.
them together, that's exactly what you did right there. So she got a little taste of champagne, and all was good with the world.
Let's talk a little bit about the lawsuit. I guess there was a cease and desist at the time about the name, the Nasty Boys. Do you remember hearing anything about that? Were you involved in any of that?
No, I wasn't. I think and it was from wasn't it from a punk rock band or something like that?
I don't
But
recall.
I wasn't involved in it. No.
Well, back on the road, the Nasties are going to be working with the Legion of Doom for the tag titles. And that's a different presentation than against the Hart Foundation. You know, it's now two big brawling teams. What'd you think of their chemistry, LOD and the Nasties?
I think that the Nasties brought it to LOD unlike any other teams, had done. It's LOD's got to go out and LOD's got to be strong and powerful and be LOD, and the Nasties had to be rough and tough and be the Nasties. So they didn't back down from the scary LOD. They brought the fight to them, and that was something that LOD wasn't ordinarily a part of. So they were always very dominant, and I thought they had very good.
We should also mention that their first big defense is a huge one because it's Saturday night's main event on NBC. And the Nasty Boys are going to retain the tag straps over the Bushwhackers in 6 minutes and 45 seconds. Totally different match, of course, than when they had 13 minutes with Bret Hart and Jim Neidhart. But still, it's a big opportunity to wrestle on a major broadcast network like this. And they start to get some babyface reactions a little bit. I mean, they're super entertaining as heels, and they're doing it all the way. But I find myself even back then, before I was a smart mark, I was a big fan of theirs. When did you notice? Hey, wait a minute. They're supposed to be bad guys, but people are kind of digging their presentation.
Well, I mean, look, what's not to dig? They're tough guys.
Yep.
They say what they're going to do, then they go out and they do it. They look cool. They're different than everybody else, and they're unapologetic for what they do. What's the hate? So I think that people started to look at them as, okay, you know what? They're pretty cool with everything that they do. So to me, it was just a matter of time until the audience comes around and says, "Yeah, no, I like these guys."
In an alternate universe, it probably would have been just a matter of time before they were on their Brother Love show, but it never happened. But I could have
And
imagined
Brother
you.
Love left,
Yeah.
got fired.
You took a little break. You got to be as
Hiatus.
nasty as you wanted to be down at Heartbreakers.
Hiatus.
Let's talk about them as a tag team for a minute. I hate to talk about this way, but boy, conversations like this happen. Whenever you see a tag team, you naturally eventually start to think, okay, if they were to split up, and guys always make the comparison, fairly or unfairly, about Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty. Because when these teams break up, usually one enjoys great single success and the other maybe not so much. We won't name any other examples, but I don't think that ever even existed in my mind. Like I never thought, hey, when the Nasty Boys break up, why did I never even allow myself as a young fan to even think that way? I mean, that almost seems unimaginable even now, them trying their hand as single stars. And I know eventually Brian did some stuff in WCW, but the idea that they were separate and on the same roster, I can't get behind that.
Well, we didn't do it.
Yeah.
I don't think it worked in that situation. So they look. Sean and Marty were two individuals that were the Rockers. I think Brian and Jerry were the Nasty. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
They weren't. Man, they just fit together. And maybe you could have. I don't know. I think. I don't know. I think legitimately, most people would tell you that Jerry is probably the toughest of the two. I don't know who would shine out of that. I think that they both kind of need each other. They fit well together. They're brothers from another mother.
I got to talk a little bit about SummerSlam. I know you're not there, but that's where we see the Nasties drop the tag straps to LOD.
They're championships. They're not straps. They're not pieces of fucking leather. They're champions. They're championships.
You weren't even there. You don't know what they were using at the time.
Well, I know that they're referred to as more valuable to be a champion than a fucking strap.
All right, is that your new thing? You're just gonna
it's just. I mean, that's just. It's not. People look at it, not fighting over a strap.
You need to go to a medical facility.
Sometimes.
Well,
that is where my doctor is at a medical facility.
Oh yeah, I understand. Thanks everybody for tuning in to something to sports entertain with. WrestleMania 8.
Thank you for tuning in.
Yes, we greatly appreciate when you tune in to something to sports entertain with.
No, we tune in something to wrestle with, but
okay.
I'm just saying it's my pet peeve. It's not.
I'm trying not to sneeze right now. Doing everything I can to not sneeze.
If you need to sneeze, go ahead.
Well, I don't want to get fired. So
who's going to fire you? You going to fire yourself for sneezing?
God damn it, pal! There is no sick.
I'm sick of this.
Yeah, I am too.
Okay.
That's why I think we should just take a break and tell everybody how they too can shave their own eyebrows off. Of course, I'm talking about Manscaped.
I know how.
You give yourself a mohawk too if you wanted to. Fellas, blink if you haven't already purchased a Father's Day gift yet. Yeah, we thought so. Well, today's episode is brought to you by Manscaped, the leaders in below the waist grooming. Make your pops so proud. Seriously, you're gonna be the hit at the get together this Father's Day if you're gifting your dad Manscaped. He's gonna pop because let's be honest, he's had a bush since the 70s, and that's okay. He's gonna be happy. Mom's gonna be thrilled. Maybe let's not talk about that anymore. Our friends at Manscaped have crafted the total package for his special day. Whether it's those boys downstairs, his beard, or even the best pair of underwear out there, Manscaped has all the bases covered. Head on over to manscaped.com right now. Get 20% off plus free shipping with our code STW. From daddy to zaddy. Trust Manscaped. You know that beard that your dad's been using since grade school? Well, it's time for a little upgrading, and that's why he needs the Beard Hedger Pro Kit. This all-in-one kit comes with a beard hedger and their most advanced beard trimmer of all time. How about the shampoo, the conditioner, the oil, and the balm, all for his beard? It even comes with a brush, a comb, and scissors, so he can style it like the true gentleman he is. And of course, we got to talk about the Handyman Face Shaver. For that smooth finish we know he loves, this bad boy is all he needs. It's compact to fit in any travel case, so you can make sure he takes it on his next trip. And if he's carrying a lot of body hair like most dads do, the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra is the hookup. It's got the signature Lawnmower 5.0, and I can't recommend that product enough. I've put so many people on it. They love it. Your dad will too. And it's also time your dad started stealing his wife's nail clippers. Finally get a kid of his own that'll last him a lifetime. The Shears 3.0 is a 5-piece men's precision nail grooming kit, so you can stay on top. Gotta have class, pal. A deep callback right there. And how about that underwear he got for Christmas in 2009? It needs to be retired immediately because Manscaped Boxers 2.0 are here for you, man. It starts with the jewel pouch. It's a dedicated space that cradles your stones in place, and it's got perforated performance fabric for extra breathability. She's going to love that. He's going to love it too. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code STW at manscaped.com. Seriously, 20% off with free shipping right now at manscaped.com when you use our code STW. Never forget where you came from. You know what I mean. Happy Father's Day from Manscaped. So listen, WrestleMania 8 rolls around. They're going to be teaming with the Mountie and the Repo Man to take on Jim Neidhart, Sergeant Slaughter, Virgil, and the Big Boss Man. Hey, at least they got a Mania payday. You were watching on pay-per-view. And when you come back after SummerSlam, there's a bunch of Nasty Boys and Money Inc. matches on the house shows. That's kind of unique because it's heel versus heel. Where do you land on that? You know, in 92 or now, two bad guy tag teams against each other. What challenges does that present, if any?
Well, I think that they were, again, this was the Nasty Boys move to the other side. So it's like, okay, they can start off heel versus heel, but they're completely different. You got the $1 million man and you got IRS who's going to make sure that you have to pay your taxes. And you've got two guys that are stinky and nasty and don't care about any of that stuff. So it's the first step in a move for the Nasty Boys to the other side. And the audience, obviously, when you have a choice between those two teams, they're going to choose the Nasty Boys.
Do you think the Nasty Boys had changed anything, or had they gotten comfortable in their space? Or, I mean, from the time you first see the Nasties to now you're coming back, they're still here. What's different, if anything, about the Nasty?
I think that I think they kind of held their own. I think that it was time for a change for them to be baby faces, and that's what needed to change. Look, it's so much more fun, and I dare say easier, but without a doubt, a lot more fun to be a heel. Nobody wants to go from being a heel to being a baby face. So I think that there was a little bit of reluctance on that side of it, but man, it was time to make the turn. They were respected, and they were at the point where the audience loved them. They wanted them to be baby faces.
Jimmy Hart is in the middle of this Nasty Boys Money Inc. program. Of course, he's managing both teams. And Jimmy's going to make a decision to choose Money Inc. to challenge for the tag team championships at the time against the Natural Disasters. And when Money Inc. are introduced, the Nasties come out upset. But DiBiase and IRS are trying to pay them off. But the Nasties attack, and it turns the Nasties babyface. I guess, the fans have been with them for a bit. We're going to try something new. I mean, they had a 2-year run together, the Nasties and Jimmy Hart. Did you think they needed Jimmy from a promo standpoint, or were you pleased with their promos and it was just time to do something different?
It's time to do something different. 2 years as heels. No, they didn't need Jimmy Hart at all. So going out on their own as a baby face, I think was a natural progression for them at this time. And use Jimmy as the other side as the antagonist. It just made sense. And the timing was right, especially with Money Inc.
The Nasty Boys then start teaming up with the Natural Disasters at Survivor Series 92 to take on Money Inc. and the Beverly Brothers. And that feud between the Nasties and Money Inc. runs all the way up until WrestleMania 9. And it's been said, I've heard this over the years, the boy Brian Knobbs was pretty upset here because Hulk Hogan's going to come back. And when he does, he's teaming with Beefcake, and he slides into that spot against Money Inc. with the now babyface manager, Jimmy Hart. But I guess once upon a time, Brian Knobbs thought, hey man, that's supposed to be our match against Money Inc. with Jimmy Hart in the middle. Did Hulk coming back change all those plans? And why did we go the tag route? I could see how Knobbs would feel like, hey, I'm on the outside looking in of all this. Talk me through that.
Well, during this time, it wasn't really sure whether or not Hulk was even going to come back. So, Hogan wasn't a part of the roster at that time, and Hulk was kind of off doing his own things, and they were in negotiations as to whether or not Hulk was going to come back and be a part of the team or what. So, in Hulk coming back, this is where it gets to the whole Beefcake thing, where Hulk really wanted to make Beefcake the guy, and thought that, okay, if he comes back and sprinkles some Hulk dust on Beefcake, then this would be the way to go. And by God, and Beefcake coming back from the accident it's a miracle. He can catch a ball. Yeah, and it was the only opponents they had in the book was Money Inc. So yeah, Nasty Boys got edged out. But if you have Hulk Hogan available for a WrestleMania and the attraction of, Hulk in a match versus Nasty Boys in a match, you're going to go with Hulk Hogan. It's bigger box office.
I totally get it. I mean, it makes all the sense in the world, but I could also see how I might be disappointed if I was one of the Nasties. I want to encourage
course you are.
everyone to go back and at least watch their entrances from the 1993 Royal Rumble. Of course, they're coming out as solo acts here, but both guys get gigantic pops. Like these are over established characters here in the WWF. And again, they just debuted at the end of 1990. Here we are in early 93. They've had the heel run and now fans can't wait to cheer them. And the rumor and innuendo is that around this time, it was at least discussed. What if we brought Captain Lou Albano back and paired him up with the Nasty Boys now that they're baby faces? And I know Captain Lou a few years later would, well, maybe have a little too much fun near a camera. But what was the talk like here in 1993? Do you remember that idea? What if we put Captain Lou with the name?
So rotten. I think, again, this goes to the rumor, the innuendo, and the just flat out bullshit of people trying to make up. Well, I bet this is what they're going to do. Trying to think like, okay, what would they do? This is what they're going to do. And then when it doesn't happen, well, I guess they're just going to say plans changed. No. Lou wanted to come back and.
Oh, he pitched it.
Huh?
He pitched it. I'm asking.
With the Nasty Boys? Lou pitched himself. Lou pitched himself with everybody.
Oh, okay. I got you.
So Lou wanted to come back. Lou just wanted to come back. This is during the time Lou would show up. Bless his heart. And Lou would come to me. I would send him to Pat or Vince. He would go to Pat or Vince. They would send, or each. We would send them to each other. Okay. And the infamous leave, we were in Poughkeepsie, maybe. And Vince had sent Lou to me. This is during the show live. And I was like, okay, you want to play ha-ha? I said, hey, man, this during the break, though, I sent Lou to Vince live out in the arena. And I said, just go out there, man, and just go talk to Vince out there. He wants you out there during this match. And, yeah. I got a talking to after that. But no, it was just during the time where Lou was back, man. I think we did something with him and the Head Shrinkers. But it was never, it was okay. We could use Lou over here in this little box, but not anything where we need to bring Lou on the road and or have Lou involved in anything in a major way. So it was very short lived. I think it was with the Head Shrinkers. And Lou was a handful, man. Lou was a little difficult to deal with at times. So, but to bring him back, there was absolutely zero conversation about putting him with the Nasty Boys. Now, I'm sure Lou probably felt that was the only way that you got to come back and be the Nasty Boys, baby, and I can do this and I can do that. Now I can do this. It was never entertained in any way, shape, or form. The fact of even bringing Lou back, I think that it was basically just tapping out because he was showing up everywhere, just showing up. And I was like, okay, we'll do this little thing over here and then move on.
Well, you said the Lou got himself in a little bit of trouble every now and again. Well, apparently so did the Nasties. They're going to reportedly get suspended after WrestleMania and the post-European tour. Those of you who have been longtime listeners, that was allegedly the reason why Hogan was made champion, even though he wasn't on the tour. Do we know why the Nasties were suspended? Do you remember this particular incident in 1993?
I don't.
Well, it's clear that their days are numbered, or so they think. Their final matches are going to be with the Head Shrinkers, and they wind up finishing up on May 16th, 1993. It's a wrestling challenge taping where they would actually pick up a win over Barry Horowitz and Steve Vega. Why did the Nasties leave? Why was it time for them to go learn a new hold? Do you recall?
I don't. I'm waiting for you to tell me.
I don't know why they left. I know almost immediately they were in WCW and became the tag champs and had a hell of a
Was
run.
there an incident what were they suspended for?
I don't know.
I don't either.
It was just reported they were suspended, and then like a month later, they're gone.
Okay. I have absolutely no recall on that at all.
Well, we know that while they're in WCW, they have some incidents there too, including a pretty legendary one that went down with the Outsiders in a tag match on a house show. Sags has a quote about that. He says, "The guy I punched in the mouth was pretty powerful in the company, my old buddy Scott Hall. I wish I could take that punch back a million times. Hall and Nash came in. I didn't know Kevin that much. Everyone changes when they come out of the pressure cooker in the WWF. It's stressful. Some of the guys turn into backstabbers. Some guys deal with the pressure in different ways. We were doing a thing and I felt this blow on the back of my skull. It knocked me out. I had a concussion, the whole 9 yards. I was mad about it. Almost the kind of thing I was going to fight him, and then I let it go. And of course, we know eventually that's going to pretty much be the end of the Nasty Boys in WCW. Knobbs winds up sticking around until 2000. We never really talked about this on today's show, but there's some connective tissue with the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes and Jerry Sags. Can you explain that relationship?
Yeah, they're brother-in-laws, aren't they?
That's what I've been under the impression. Yeah.
Yeah, Jerry and Michelle are brothers.
Well, I think brother,
right?
sister. Yeah.
Brothers, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, brothers.
They're siblings.
Brother, sister. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's his brother-in-law. And then Fred, Tugboat, is married to a sister too.
Isn't that an interesting family?
Dusty and them are brother-in-law.
I mean, when people talk about,
can you imagine those picnics?
That whole wrestling has more than one royal family. It's not just Cody and Dustin and Dusty. It's also Tugboat and Nasty Boy Sags.
Yeah.
Pretty wild.
Yeah. And the Rougeaus.
Why not? Shit, get them all in here. We do get a random return I want to ask you about. 2007, a random return. All of a sudden, the Nasty Boys are wrestling in the WWE in the year 2007. 27 years after they debuted, they have a dark match before a SmackDown television taping against Dave Taylor and a very young Drew McIntyre. It went down on November 20th, 2007. And here's what was written. The Nasty Boys worked their first match in the WWE in years in a dark match at the SmackDown taping last night. The match was said to be a total disaster. The Nasty Boys apparently treated the dark match as if they were two major stars who just returned. They took too long getting into the ring because when they came out, they kept interacting with their friends and family seated at ringside. Knobbs got in the ring with his back to the hard camera while Sags came and stood right next to his opponents, Drew McIntyre and Dave Taylor, making them look stupid. During the match, the Nasties were stiff with McIntyre, who's only 21 and new to the main roster. He took the abuse for a while, but eventually started giving out his own stiff shots to the Nasties. The Nasties even tried to work stiff with Dave Taylor, even though he's a respected veteran. Some blame the Nasties match for taking so long for screwing up the entire taping, causing it to end at 9:54 p.m. Eastern and giving WWE just 6 minutes to change the ring and set for ECW on Sci-Fi. My goodness, how in the world did we have a Nasty Boys dark match in 2007? What do you remember of this?
Nasty's wanted to come back. We were in Tampa, and so let's take a look. They told us what great shape they were in, and that never been better, and so on and so forth. Okay, we'll take a look at you. And came in grossly out of shape. And everything you said, that all happened. And they went out and they took forever. They were taking liberties. The match was god awful. And they were tripping over their own 2 feet. You know, it was just sad. There's just, you reach a point where, you know, you don't have it anymore. just, man, father time does no jobs. And they weren't in the best shape or in the worst shape of their life. And went out, didn't listen to anybody. We had to, we do have time constraints and you got to go. And this is an audition. This isn't go out and eat somebody up and put them out there with two guys, and Dave Taylor, who can certainly handle himself, and Drew, who could handle himself, but was greener than goose poo poo, and didn't know what to do. But eventually was like, I've had enough of this and not going to take it anymore, and I'm going to fire back. So it was a disaster. It was just a complete disaster in the making. And because of that, made everything else, it's time, and time and timing is probably as important as everything else that we do. And if you can't hit your times and you can't do things to be within your time constraints, then that is probably as big of an X as not being able to work or cut a promo. So that's one of the things that is a pet peeve of everybody. Definitely a pet peeve of mine. But we're doing a TV show, and if you can't teach people how to get off the air at the right time with the right emotion and the right story and the right everything, then you're doing a disservice to the rest of the show, the rest of the talent, and everybody else involved. Uh, so not listening, not being able to adapt, and you just say, "Well, I got to get my shit in, or I got to do this." We talked about doing this. Hey, man, guess what? That was when you had 8 minutes. Now you got 4. Go. You gotta be able to edit on the spot. And they were just gonna go out and do their thing, and they didn't care about anybody else. And that probably number one is the biggest mark against them, because it's like, okay, well, they're selfish. They're not if they can't listen when they're here to impress, what are they gonna do if we brought them in? So it's very unfortunate because, again, I like both of those guys personally. I think they're fucking great guys. Again, always a smile on their face, always in a great mood, always positive. But in this situation, man, either they got into their own head or somebody got into their ear, and it was bad advice, and it was a bad way to go in and address this, because this was a tryout and this was an opportunity to show, hey, here's why you need us back. You didn't come back in shape. You went out, you didn't listen when referees are telling you what to do, and you took liberties and went way over your allotted time. And you forgot everything that you had learned in your previous stint and went out and broke every cardinal rule. So too bad. That part's a shame.
I read that Drew McIntyre's been quoted as to say something along the lines of, "It was all very new to me. I just arrived to America, but Sheamus and Ted DiBiase Jr. had warned me of what to expect. Cover up or your nose is going to get fucked up." First curtain sellout I'd ever seen, and mostly I just left it to Dave Taylor to handle. A curtain sellout for a nasty return in 2007. I guess that makes sense. My goodness.
Well, they wanted to see if they would be able to make it through the match breathing.
You saw them 3 years later, TNA in 2010, when Bischoff and Hogan were at the helm. The Nasties were back on TV. What was your last interaction with the Nasty Boys in TNA, or have you ran across them since?
No, actually, I wasn't there in TNA when they came through, because I didn't come back till 10/10/10. So they had already been there and gone. But I run into them all the time, man, whether it be at conventions or seeing them in Tampa around town. And it's like seeing long lost, great friends, because they never met a stranger, either one of them. They're, like I said, they're always just positive, and they're wonderful to be around. And what you see is exactly what you get, on with Knobs. Knobs is loud and obnoxious and great and fun and just a blast to be around. Gary's a little bit more reserved, but he's a funny son of a gun and a great guy. So I've seen him plenty of times since, and it's always great to see him.
I know there's been some pretty legendary rib stories. Do you have any that you recall about the Nasties? I mean, we've heard, you know, that the eyebrow thing that maybe they started. I know Mr. Perfect borrowed. Are there any other interesting or silly ribs that you heard about that the Nasties did?
I mean, the some of them could be, yeah. And look, the eyebrow thing. God, Fuji was doing that long before the nasties were even twinkles in their daddy's eyes. I think that whenever someone would take their shoes off, and this goes back, old days, man. You're traveling on a plane and somebody kicks their shoes off and sticks their stinky feet up on the back of a chair and goes to sleep or something like that. Um, Sometimes they would wake up and their shoes would be missing. Now, the way to do that, not that you can really do that kind of thing anymore, was you just take one shoe. So when I wake up, it's like they got one shoe. Where's the other shoe? Obviously, it must have slid back somewhere or gone somewhere or something like that. And let them look for it for a while. And sometimes they find it in a bizarre place. Sometimes, if they're a jerk, they never find it. So that's always a favorite. But, yeah,
One of the
this is horrible to say. There was I was flying to Nashville and was on a small commuter plane, and there were these kids just running wild on the plane, and the parents weren't doing anything about it. So the kids were slapping each other and hitting each other and running up and down and bumping people in the aisle, and people were getting really angry. They talked to the flight attendant. The flight attendant went, talked to the parents. Nothing got resolved, or anything like this. And I went up and I talked to the kids and the parents together, like only I can, and told them, get it handled, or you're not going to like the way that I handle it. And they settled down, and then one of them, threw a shoe,
yes.
and they threw the shoe, and it hit chair next to me. And they saw me look, and they immediately turned around, and they were good for the rest of the flight. Like, goes about another hour. And as we were getting off the plane, the parents are looking, where's your shoe? And they're like, I don't know. So now they have everybody on the plane looking for their shoe. And they were so nasty and rude about it that, let's just say, that shoe will never be found. They could have torn that airplane apart, taken every single piece, every screw, every nut and bolt out of it, and they would have never found that shoe. They would have never found that shoe in the state of Tennessee. And it was the middle of winter, and that little kid had to walk off that plane. And I sat right outside the door waiting for them to come off the plane
With one shoe.
with one shoe. And then I walked behind him all the way down. The little kid cried, and the parents were doing their thing. Yeah. So there's good things that can happen out of that. Teach the little kid to keep his shoe on. There's lessons in life, Conrad. There's lessons in life that have to be taught. Saying.
Was there a lesson you remember hearing that was taught about Ken Shamrock? Allegedly, he got into it with the Nasties.
When he first broke in?
Somebody smacked him with a phone, and next thing you know, it's 2-on-1. And there was really an Ultimate Fighting Championship in a hotel room. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, that was like a long, long time ago. That was when Kenny first broke into the wrestling.
What do you think of the Nasty Boys' reputation in the business? How will they be remembered?
To those that knew them, I think that they're going to be remembered as a great tag team and two guys that had a passion for the business and had a passion for life in general. So, from my point of view, I look at them affectionately. I think to some people that might think that they took liberties with them or what have you. Look, it was a gimmick, and the gimmick was unique and different, and that's what made him stand out. So more power to them, and I applaud the fact that they were able to do that.
Do you think they deserve to be in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah,
I would agree.
great tag team.
Let's do a few questions here. Gavin, AFS, Aunt in My Eye Jones says, has the team ever done more with
Ants
less?
in My Eyes Jones.
Has the team ever done more with less than the Nasty Boys? They were never body guys. The in-ring was just okay. The promos were just okay, but consistently found themselves at the top of the card. I liked them. I don't know if I agree with that.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I disagree. I disagree with it. They were bad in the ring and that their promos were bad. They were different.
Yes.
They were different. They were aggressive. They were storytellers, and they were unique. They weren't your cookie cutter stuff. So yeah, I disagree with that, man. I think they were good.
Let's talk about Instagram, a wrestling historian's question. He says, Brian Knobb stated in a past shoot interview, he was pissed at Hulk Hogan and Beefcake taking their tag title match at WrestleMania 9. Was the original plan for the Nasty Boys to win the tag straps back, or would Money Inc. have retained? That's interesting. Do you think that they would have had another tag title run?
Actually, they got a right set tag team championships back. But no, look, there was never, by the time that, Hulk was coming back, there was no set Nasty Boys versus Money Inc. at WrestleMania. So it wasn't like they took something from them. It just didn't happen.
Starco says, what if they came out to Janet Jackson's Nasty Boys? Boy, he's wanting you to do a little speak and spell. I didn't really think about that, but I guess she did have a Nasty Boy song out at the time in a different era. I could see her coming in to sing them to the ring at a WrestleMania or some silliness.
Okay. Yeah, not a Janet Jackson fan. I'm not familiar. I'm not familiar with the tune.
Okay. Well, I gave you some homework there. Yeah. I'm not going to sing it though. I'll have Dave Silva.
Does Silva know it?
He does.
Okay.
The Rosen Coaster says, any good ribs that you're able to share? You sort of shared some of those before. It feels like maybe they're getting lumped in unfairly, or did they fairly earn it? I mean, we've heard Mr. Perfect and Mr. Fuji and Owen Hart. Are they in that same vein, or are those other guys sort of in the master class and the Nasty Boys are doing their best?
The Nasty Boys had their fair share of ribs. They like to have a good time and they like to rib. Yeah, they're definitely there. I don't know that they were, either more and or less, but they were kind of in that same grouping.
We got another question here from Toby. He wants to know, has Bruce ever gotten a pity city done to him? It's a fun one.
What's a pity city?
You rub your armpit in the guy's face. They did it all the time in the Nasty Boys matches.
That was, I thought that was called something else.
That's called pity city.
It was called pit stop.
Yeah. Well, whatever. Same thing.
Well, okay. I've never heard of a pity city.
Okay. Did you ever get pit stopped, you motherfucker?
No.
God
hell
damn.
No.
You got to start jacking off before we record or have a prime or something. You're in an ill mood today.
Yeah.
Well, that only leaves one option.
Well, no, wait a minute. You asked me about something that I've never in my life ever heard that term.
I didn't act like you started having an attitude right then. It's been since you jumped on the fucking thing here today.
No, that's not true.
It is true.
It is not true.
Adam Leeson wants to know, who was easier to be in a room with, Sax or Knobs? Who was easier to be in a room with?
Definitely Sax.
I was like, everybody knows the answer to that. Why do we even have to ask?
Oh, you can have a nice quiet drink and nice time and laugh and joke with Jerry, but with Knobs, it's going to be loud.
Yeah, it is. And it's going to be loud.
Bombastic.
Going to be all of those things next week at somethingtowrestle.com. We're coming your way on Memorial Day with a very special Ask Bruce Anything. You can leave your questions right now over at somethingtowrestle.com. That is your home for all things Bruce Prichard, and it's totally free. So go right now and hit the subscribe button, turn on the notifications bell so you know when we're live or when we have a new video. And if you like what we're doing over there, throw us a thumbs up. It really helps the algorithm. That's somethingtowrestle.com. And Bruce, you guys have a big weekend. You know, not just is there a big Monday Night Raw tonight, and of course a big NXT tomorrow night, a real big SmackDown on Friday, but Saturday, a premium live event, the Queen and King of the Ring.
First 1 o'clock Eastern over here. Special start time.
Special part time. I got it. That's kind of what Bruce has been doing with the podcast for this year. And we're hoping to fix that. So it's no longer a special part time. So we're going to be recording these on the weekend. Of course, the second weekend or the third weekend we get to do that, he has a fucking premium live event. So we're going to get in where we fit in, but we're excited to be back with you here on Mondays now at somethingtowrestle.com. Bruce, I hope your rest of your day gets better and that Raw is kick ass tonight.
I know it will be.
Great. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you next week right here on Something to Wrestle with Bruce.
Hey guys, Eric Bischoff here. Now, if you need cash without the controversy, the team at SaveWithConrad.com can help. But don't take my word for it.
Hi, my name is Richard Smith. I'm from Moss Point, Mississippi. One of my friends at work said I just been refinancing and my interest rate was 9%, and he said he got his for 2.3. So I said, well, maybe I should try. Got a hold of Diane. She kept in touch the whole entire time. We owned 2 houses, and we rented one out, and my renter quit paying, so we gave it back to the mortgage company. And because we did that, we had to wait 3 years for an FHA loan to go back through. The one thing that Conrad said on his podcast was, we'll never tell you no. We might say, not now, this is what we need to do, and we'll make sure we get it done. Well, prime example, 3 years. And when they say no money out of pocket, there's no money out of pocket. They figure it out. But like, she was so quick that, don't worry about this, I got this person. That's what impressed me the most. My name is Richard Smith, and I saved $700 a month with SaveWithConrad.com.
And unlike the dirt sheets, these reviews don't lie. With over 1,000 5-star reviews, find out for yourself how much Conrad and his team can save you by checking out SaveWithConrad.com and do it today.
NMLS number 32416, equal housing lender, SaveWithConrad.com.